Hey guys, welcome back. It is me, Richard Kaufman, also known as the Comeback Coach. Guys, this is going to be an amazing episode. You think email is dead? You are dead wrong. My brother Dan, we teaches us some amazing stuff. And at the end, we're going to give you 3 things that you can do today to make sure that your email marketing doesn't suck. So Dan is somebody that I look up to. I've been following him. I'm absorbing everything I can. For me, he's the Yoda of marketing and email marketing. Everything I get is from this gentleman. He taught me how to use the hero's journey. We're going to be talking about that. So guys, make sure that you listen to this, get a pen and paper, because this might be something where you're going to be able to generate 100,000, 200,000, maybe $1 million in your email list. So make sure you pay attention. My brother, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you, Richard. Thank you. I'm doing great. You're too kind with your intro, but I appreciate it. Appreciate it.
I love it. So before we even get started, I'd like to ask my guests, what is your definition of resiliency? Because even just in the last 3 years since 2020, a lot of businesses had to become resilient or else they're going to go out of business. So what is your definition of resiliency?
Yeah, that's a good one. For me, I think it really just comes down to never losing hope and always having an optimistic approach for the future. With what happened 3-4 years ago, it's super easy to look at the situation and be like, oh, the world's burning down, we're all screwed. But it's, the people that are most resilient are also the people that create the biggest innovation. I mean, we've seen businesses and companies grow out of the Great Depression and 2008 crash. Sure, there's a lot on the rise since COVID still. So those people are those same people that I'm talking about, where that they've never lost hope. They remain optimistic. And I think the most important part is seeing opportunities in, the depths of despair when everyone seems hopeless, and then actually sharing that.
Okay, so now you're a young man, you're 23 years old, got your whole life ahead of you. How did you get into this crazy world of marketing, branding, email marketing? How did this come all about at such a young age? Because most kids your age are just finishing college and they're still hanging out at the titty bars and trying to figure out who they are.
Yeah, it was a complete accident, honestly. My original path was just to become a physiotherapist. I grew up playing hockey, so I loved everything to do with health, fitness, wellness. I had to eventually quit because I tore a ligament in my spine, which, once again, you grow up playing a sport, your entire identity is there. And as a 17-year-old, that identity was like stripped. So I had no freaking clue what I was going to do. And I was like, well, I guess my only option is to actually focus on my academics. So I did that, but then I was also a door-to-door sales guy for this, for a franchisee here in the city. And eventually I got the opportunity to run my own franchisee company. The first week I had one of my franchisees reach out to me. He's like, hey, have you ever thought about starting your own, business? I was like, no, I see what you guys do. It's too difficult. Don't want to do it. Then within that same week, my second manager reached out. He's like, have you ever thought about running your own franchise? I was like, did you two talk? And she was like, nope, not at all. Why? And I was like, because you both brought up the same idea. So that was my first sort of, I'm very spiritual. So like this, like straight up God given, like just God placed the opportunity right in my lap, where it's still to this day, I think back and it's crazy. Cause yeah, 2 of my sort of bosses, managers, who I was just a door-to-door marketer. I was just working a few hours a week, but they saw something in me to mention that. So that was my first step into entrepreneurship. Never thought I would ever start a business, never really knew anything about it. Long story short, ran a painting franchise in my city as an 18-year-old. Had a very hard experience because my leadership skills were just garbage at the time. So it was a very tough year, but it gave me an introduction to business. And then during that process, I started finding out more about online entrepreneurship and the lifestyle you could build online. And at the time, I was in kinesiology in a 4-year degree. I was like, why am I doing this? There's this kind of lifestyle that I can live, this kind of income I can make, this kind of freedom I can have. What is the point of me being in university? So I started grinding away online. At the time, started to try, create my own agency. Didn't know it was an agency at the time. I was just kind of blindly taking action, trying to make something work. And then when COVID hit, that once again, I think that was like the other sort of catalyst that reaffirmed that it's like, okay, I need to go all in on this business because I'm not about to pay the same tuition to take a bunch of online lectures. So I dropped out that summer because I was making okay money as a salesperson for an Instagram growth company. That was like my first income made online. And that's when I was just like, okay, it's time to go all in. I paid off my student loan, dropped out of university. I was like, okay, fresh slate. It's time to make this work. I had no other option. I met a sales coach who actually helped me increase my sales from while I was working with that company. And he pitched an opportunity of like, hey, come work with my agency. You'll be a head coach. You'll get to coach all these people. You'll get to have the impact goals that you want, but we're also going to work with some of the biggest, names. The income opportunity for you is going to be really good. So I was like, at the time, I was like 20 years old, whatever it was, 19, 20. Yeah. I was like, oh my God, this sounds amazing. Like my life's really picking up. Long story short, joined that opportunity. It was just all sort of my naivete playing hard, where I just didn't do my research. I just, didn't understand too many things. And for 5 months straight, I worked for free. I might have made like $200 worth of commissions, but basically working 20, 40 hours a week for this guy, took no other opportunities on the side. So I was making no money, living in my girlfriend's parents' basement, just paying like $200 per month rent because they were just kind enough to drop down for me. And so I was making no money, and it was just kind of a bad experience. I was the second last person out of the 5 of us that joined as head coaches to drop out. But the silver lining was that coach told me to give email marketing a shot, because I kept bouncing around different roles inside the company because it was not a legit company. So I decided to, when I left that company, I had such crippling anxiety that I actually had to take counseling. So it was kind of a pretty toxic work culture where anything that I did was being scrutinized. We would jump on Zoom calls where he pretty much just watch me work, do some things while he enjoys his free time, sits on his phone, whatever. And then I would mess something up or do something wrong or have no idea what to do something. And then it would just be like, just negative feedback. There was no sort of help or anything like that. So enough was enough. So I left, had a negative sort of perception of high ticket sales. And I decided to give the whole copywriting a shot. So I was like, let me just become an email marketer, because that's more congruent with the lifestyle that I wanted to have. And basically, that's how I got introduced to email marketing. I withdrew all of my money that I had from my investments. So the retirement account that I had in Canada with the tax-free account that I had in Canada, withdrew all of my stocks and my investments, invested into a payment plan with a program, and just went all in. It got to a point where I actually had to pick up a bartending job because I just couldn't pay off the payment plan even. But I had a lot of faith. So I picked up the bartending job, and me and my girlfriend decided to take a trip in July of 2021, this was. And this was I was deep into working the bartending job. I was sending free samples to people, trying to find my first paying client, basically just trying to reset my online entrepreneurship trajectory. And nobody was paying. Everybody kept telling us oh, you're a talented writer, your work is really good. But it's I was getting so frustrated because I was the money's not coming in. No one's paying me. I can't keep working at the bar. I don't want to be working at the bar. So this continued on for 4 months. And in July, we drove around a campus in Vancouver, and I was having second thoughts. I was maybe I should just go back to university. This stuff's not really working out. I can, become a software engineer, can make good money, and just live a comfortable life. And funnily enough, one of the guys that I met at the Instagram growth companies, I chatted with him because he got a software engineering degree, and I was like, hey man, like what's the process like? How do you like it? That kind of thing. And he messaged me back. He's like, don't do it. You're the type of personality that's not fit for that sort of life. And this is another sort of like God-given moment that I almost believe, because he was like a messenger. He was like, just stick with what you're doing. Like, I promise you, it's eventually going to work out. He was actually my very first paid email sort of copywriting client. And he saved me pretty much from going back to university and giving up on the online entrepreneurship journey. So I stuck with it. I ended up getting my first agency gig within a month of that happening. It was paying me, okay money, but it wasn't enough to quit the bartending job. Then within 2 months after that, I picked up a second agency gig. And that's when I was able to leave the bartending job. That's when my income skyrocketed. And I was still very young. So at the time I was like, this is like, I feel rich. And then, yeah, that's pretty much like up to that point, I became that sort of established copywriter. Wasn't focusing on email just yet because I was sort of developing my skill set with the agencies. But that was sort of when everything really started to pick up for me, because I was almost 2 years into sort of that online entrepreneurship journey where I just, like a lot of adversity, but I kept pushing through it because I didn't lose faith. I almost did once, but thankfully I had, people that kept me accountable, people that encouraged me. And then, work with agencies for a bit, got tired of that lifestyle. Started working with a coach that taught me how to transition from agency to freelancer. And basically I replaced my agency income within 3 months of working with this guy. And I started making even more just by focusing on emails as well. And that was last year's summer while me and my girlfriend were taking the 3 3-month trip in Italy. And then from that point on, like I freelanced, was making really good money. Everything was working well. Like I started developing a reputation for myself. People were coming to me with work. People wanted to work with me. And then, it got to a point where just this past September, I launched my agency for email marketing. I had a lot of hesitations because I was such a bad leader at 18. So I was like, leadership's just not for me. Managing people is not for me. But got over that hesitation after like 10 months of thinking about it. And it's been amazing. Like the business has been growing. I've been learning so much more. I've been having so much fun with the different style of work that I'm doing, with like the leadership aspect and more of like the CEO style work rather than like being an operator. So that's like a quick but not so quick nutshell of my entire journey of how I even got into sort of entrepreneurship and online marketing.
All right, so I want to hop back a little bit, but first I want to thank our sponsors. Because we're talking about writing. One of my sponsors, his name is J.F. Holmes. He actually writes some amazing books. They're science fiction, but they're also military based. So if you like books, if you like video games like Halo, he writes books like that. So if you guys love to read, check out his books. I've read them all, and I'm a big reader. So if you love to read, if you love sci-fi, and if you love military fiction, check out JF Holmes up above. Well, let me ask you a question, because I did door-to-door sales, and it's the best way to learn how to take a lot of no's. But you learn a lot to adjust on the fly a lot of times. But your two managers, sometimes you're lucky if you get one manager to see something in you, but to have two different managers without even talking to each other to see something in you, that's amazing. So what do you think it was that they saw in you? And something that I noticed is that you put me at ease. So you don't come in like a salesman. You actually have that kind of mellow personality where you don't feel aggravated or stressed out when they're talking to you. So what are some of the things you think that they saw in you as you were doing this door-to-door thing?
I, to this day, honestly don't fully know. I probably should ask them. One of them, the first guy that asked me actually, because I was a door-to-door for a painting franchisee and a window cleaning franchisee. So I was basically working 2 door-to-door jobs at once during the summer, right before I went to university. And window cleaning side, the guy basically kept telling me, he's like, oh, dude, like, you're like a shark, you're amazing. Because I was booking him a lot of jobs. And he lived in a really good area in the city where like the ticket value of the jobs were high. So every time I would book, I would just like update it. It's like, hey, this is booked. Like there would be weeks where I'd book multiple jobs. He was like, dude, like you're like an absolute shark. And he texted me, he's like, you ever think about, becoming a window cleaning franchisee? And that's when I was like, nah, screw that. Like, I see what you guys do. It's too much work. Don't want to do that. For the painting side, I've been with her. So I started working with her in January, and this was probably July, August-ish. So I've been with her for quite a while. And for her, I want to say I was the only door-to-door person left that started with her in January. So I've been with her for like 8 months. And as you can imagine, I mean, we were talking sort of offline about how cold it gets here in Canada. So I was door knocking for booking painting estimates in January or February when I was like minus 20 degrees Celsius. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit. Probably like 0 degrees Fahrenheit, something along those lines. So it was really cold, but like I never really complained. Like I would show up, do my work. I would show up on time, if not early. I would show up to every meeting that we had. So we had a weekly meeting. Same thing. I would always show up on time early. If I was late, I'd always message before. I'd be like, sorry, I'm late. So I would just, to me, it seems like I would do the bare minimum of what's expected when you're an employee. Just be punctual, work hard, and don't be a pain in the butt to the person that hired you. Like that's the core things that I focused on. So I think just that commitment, the hard work that I put in, the loyalty that I had, and just, I guess, like the values, because we got to know each other throughout our working relationship. So she probably saw, I guess, the drive in me. Once again, I don't know, just guessing. And yeah, but I think that's what they saw. But yeah, I totally agree with you. Like sometimes I think back and it is nuts to me still to this day that, yeah, two managers within the same week of each other, without talking to each other, pitched me the same idea. So yeah, I don't know, just full of gratitude when I think back of that.
And I believe it's a God thing. So that's my opinion anyway. I'm a big believer. So I believe in divine intervention. So let's talk about marketing, because I'm a big marketing and branding, and I love marketing, branding, and I'm really getting into email, learning about email marketing, because about 2 years ago, one of my friends said, I'm going to give you access to a 12-week course on branding, marketing. And I was like, yeah, okay. But I only took the class because I wanted to call bullshit on everything. So I'm the kind of guy, I'm like, yeah, this just doesn't work. But I took the class and I took it seriously. And they taught me about, marketing, branding, email marketing, and how to launch evergreen products like books and courses and stuff. And I call bullshit on it. But my father passed on Valentine's Day 2 years ago. And while I was there taking care of business, I had money flowing in 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I was like, damn it, you got me. I was going to try to call bullshit, but this stuff actually works. And because I was with GNC at the time, and GNC was open from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., but the internet never closes. And I was like, now I get it. So talk to us about the world that we're living in, especially the internet being open 24 hours a day, and how much a lot of us are leaving so much, at least 12 hours of money on the table every day by not being online.
Yeah. So I just recently finished reading a book. It's called The Almanac of Naval Ravikant. He's an entrepreneur and investor. Great read, especially if you're just starting in entrepreneurship, because he covers a lot of things between business and personal life and just the philosophy to run with in general. He talks about the different forms of leverage that you can have. So, my memory is probably failing me, but there's people, there's capital, and then there's also content, or like code, he says. Alex Hormozy talks about something similar. He references Naval as well. I think content, so people is like the most bare bones. It's the oldest form of leverage that we've had for centuries, if not millennia. Then, there's capital, which kind of came along later, but you need a lot of capital to actually be able to leverage it. Last one is content or code, whatever you want to call it, which is free, just takes some of your time. But the thing about the internet, like you said, it being open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, is you can put something out today and then someone will read it in a week, month, a year from now and be like, oh, let me reach out to this guy and see if I can work with him. That's happened to me with sort of my clients. That's pretty much how majority of my clients have come to me is I'll put something out there, they'll notice it, they'll resonate with it. I usually put something out every day, so they'll resonate with multiple pieces, which really stacks up, starts to compound that effect. And they're like, okay, like I really got to work with them. Like I really want to work with them. And that's one of the best forms of leverage because it just survives. It survives. People want entertainment. People want to read or see or watch some kind of content online. So you might as well fill that need while also building your brand. Like, and it's not like a give or take situation. You have to give before you even get anything in return. So I think it's just one of the most it's one of the best forms of leverage that you can use. Once again, especially if you're starting out, because the reality situation is, regardless of whether you're selling products or services, if people don't know who you are or what you do, what you sell, they're never going to buy. And that's something I've coached few copywriters and I've ran quite a few trainings for different copywriters and email marketers. And that's something I always preach to them is like, start a personal brand. Like I had a lot of reservations around it. I did not want to do it because I just could not bear the thought of, first of all, just making content. But second of all, I had the sort of limiting belief of like, well, who am I to post content? And who am I for other people to actually listen to me or take my advice? Who am I to speak on this topic? The thing is though, there's always going to be someone that reads. There's always going to be someone that watches or listens. And I'm going to go back and say this again. If nobody knows who you are, they're never going to be able to reach out to you. They're never going to be able to buy from you. Once again, I'm going to quote Hermosi here. He says that advertising is just the process of making known. And that's exactly it. You're pretty much advertising yourself by putting content out. You're making yourself more known. You're growing your reach. You're growing your influence. The more people that know you and know what you do, the higher chance you have of someone coming to you be like, hey man, I need help with this. Can I pay you for this? So there we go. And once again, it doesn't die. Once you put it out there, it stays on there 24/7. People can read it regardless of whether they're in the States, they're in South Africa, they're in Europe, they're in China. Like, it doesn't matter the time zone. It's always there.
Yeah, and I talked about people. I talk all my clients that I have that people are not going to buy from you unless they know, like, and trust you.
Yes.
And like everybody says, well, why should I keep putting out content? And I'm like, why does Coca-Cola keep advertising? You're not going to go watch the commercial and go right out and buy a Coke. But when you're going walking down the aisle, you're going to think Coke and you're going to go pick it up. So a lot of times, well, what's my ROI? Well, your ROI is infinite if you keep putting out. People are going to see it over and over again. And then I think, what is this? Is it like 9 touches before somebody actually buys something? Something like that?
Yes, there's different studies done. I've heard of that same study, about 9 touches before someone, actually purchases.
But everybody, and I tell that's all. I just launched a course January 1st, and I teach people how to run a million download course podcast. I teach them that if you're not everywhere, you're nowhere, because people consume content different ways. Some people are readers, some people are video people. So you have to hit the people where they're at. So talk about that. Is sometimes you have to go at the same thing, just different ways.
Yep. 100% agree with you on the know, like, and trust, or the KLT factor. It's funny that you mentioned about how you have to be everywhere. I call this omnipresence. This is something I talked about a lot, like last year specifically. But where
do you think I got that?
Yeah. Like, you cannot, people think that let me start here. A lot of people have false expectations around content, especially with TikTok coming out and Instagram Reels popping off, where it's like, okay, I'm going to make one piece of content. It's going to blow up. I'm going to become a millionaire. That's all I need to do. No, like it does come down to that compounding effect where the more you post, the more the more it compounds over time, the more people are going to get to know you. They're going to know you, like you, and trust you, because that's what you got to do to actually create business. And going to the sort of point you made about Coca-Cola, it's always being at the top. You're always optimizing for being top of mind. That's what it is. Like you're planting the seed and then you're watering that seed in people's minds. So people discover your brand, whether it's YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, wherever it is, Twitter. They discover you, they read a piece of content like, oh, I like this guy. The seed is now planted. They follow you. Okay, that's the next step. They keep reading your content. And what happens is you're always in their mind. Like, this is why you have to play the long-term game when it does come to advertising, marketing, and personal branding, is because, first of all, you're never going to figure it out along the way. Otherwise, or you're never going to figure out all at once, because it would just be boring and everyone would have the same brand and everyone would be experts. The second thing is that you give people an insight into what they can do to improve. So they might see themselves in you. So this is why it's so important to actually have a personality and actually be vulnerable in your content and just share your experiences, share your learnings, because some people be like, I'm just like this guy, or I used to be just like this guy. I like the way he thinks. I want to be part of his journey. So let me work with him. Let me reach out and mentor him. Whatever it is. You're going to get more opportunities by putting yourself out there than hiding. Same thing. If people never see you, if people don't know you, you're never going to get any opportunities coming to you, because that's just not how luck works. That's just not how God works. To kind of detract from this, my mom would always tell me an anecdote as a kid. It's like this Eastern European anecdote where this guy would pray to God every day, be like, God, please, let me win the lottery. He would pray for weeks, months, if not years. Eventually, God responded to him and is like, okay, I've got your prayers. I hear you. Why don't you buy a lottery ticket first? And it's just like that same thing. It's like we always want to reach the outcome before we actually do the work. And it's the same thing with personal branding. It's like, you just have to do the work. I've been doing this for close to 2 years now, over a year and a half of just consistently posting. And it's like, I'm still reaping the benefits. I'm getting people that reach out to me being like, hey man, like, I've been tracking you. I mean, you specifically as well. You've mentioned this too. And it is so gratifying to get this from people where you're like, hey man, I've been following you for a year. I've been following you since you started. It's been amazing to watch your growth. I get so much value out of your stuff. Like, that alone, if people don't pay you, that alone is what keeps you going. So at first, just focus on helping people, sharing about your experiences, sharing about your learnings, because chances are you're not really an expert in anything just yet. Or if you are, talk about that. And then as you post more content, the effect is just going to compound. More people are going to find out about you, and your chances of actually working with someone is going to exponentially increase, because, like I said, you're always top of mind because you're showing up every day and they just can't stop thinking about you. You have the omnipresence because no matter where they go, there you are. And at the end of the day, at a certain point, they're going to get to a position where they're like, okay, I have this problem. Who do I know that can solve this problem? You're probably going to pop up because you're, once again, always top of mind. You've planted that seed and you've watered that seed for so long in their minds that you're the only person that comes to mind that they want to work with, that they can help, because they know you, they like you, they trust you, they see you as an authority, they see you as a credible figure. That's just leverage. Like, it's making content might take you 20, 30 minutes a day, but the effects that you get, it's like, putting $1 in today and then it compounding to whatever it is in 10, 20 years. It's the same effect. It just compounds over time and you can't go wrong with it.
All right, so let's talk about, because for me, I mean, some say I got a big following. I don't think I do. I consider everybody that does follow me a friend. I don't have followers. I have friends. But even if 200 people follow me on a platform, that's 200 people that I'm grateful for. That if I told somebody, you know what, at your restaurant tonight, we can have 200 people. Would you love that? And they'd be like, oh, that'd be freaking awesome. Well, each person that follows you or hits that subscribe button, they're taking time out of their lives to be a part of your life. So don't take them for granted. And I see a lot of people, I got to get 1 million followers. And I'm like, even like Russell Brunson, when I talk to him, he's like, I'd rather have 10,000 people that I'm connected with than 1 million people that I'm not connected with.
Yep.
So talk about that is, having gratitude, but also not taking for granted. Even if you have a small list, don't take that list for granted at all.
Yeah. So continuing off your point here, there's stories of a lot of these TikTok stars or social media influencers who have millions of followers, who have launched a service, who have launched a product, but like it flops. Like they might make, a couple $1,000s a month, which is life-changing money for some people. But in the grand scheme of things, when you have some like 1 million, 2 million, 10 million followers, you'd think they probably make more. So that just goes to show that it's like, it's the whole cliche thing is it's not the quantity, but it's like the quality. Yes, like I've seen people that have had audiences of, 150, 200, 300 people that have outperformed people with audiences of like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people. Because it just all depends on the type of person that you attract with your brand, with your marketing. If you're speaking to a certain kind of avatar audience that, maybe doesn't have the money to invest in you, maybe, they just have the wrong values, anything like that, sure, you can get 10,000, 100,000, 1 million people following you. But if you can't monetize that, like what's the point? You might be fulfilling the ego side of, building the business and the status side of building business. Like, oh, look at me. Like I have such a big audience. But if you can't monetize it, you're no different than, someone that's just working a regular job and is actually like enjoying it. Except for them, they don't have the unnecessary attention. They're just making a paycheck. For you, if you have that big of an audience, but you're not monetizing it, or you can't because it's the wrong audience, then it's like, same thing, like which position would you rather be in? You can either optimize for ego and status, or you can actually optimize for income and like freedom and focus on that. So that's just the way I see it is. And that's something that's always a reminder for me is that things like engagement, things like followers, those are just surface level metrics that might give you some kind of quote clout. But at the end of the day, they don't matter. You're not going to go to bed at night, thinking like, thank God I have 1 million followers. You're going to go to bed at night because like, you're like sick. Like I have a sustainable business. I have a lot of people that look up to me. I'm actually providing value to these people. My bills are covered. My family's protected. There's that. So you can play the different games. It's just whatever game you want to play.
And my mindset shifted when I talked to the two Dans, Dan Locke and Dan Kennedy. And when Dan said, Mr. Kennedy said, I can't pay my bills with likes. I can't pay my mortgage with a heart. So if we're not making money, you can't really change anybody's life anyway, because your cup is empty. So I was like, that makes a lot of sense. So I love what you're talking about. So now let's talk about email. Like we were talking about earlier. There'll be times when my wife is working and I'll be working and she'll get an email from Taco Bell. And 30 minutes later, I'm getting my food delivered just because of the email. Just said, hey, Taco Supremes are back or whatever. And it happens all the time. But people say email is dead. But I say, no, it's your copywriting that's dead. So talk about email marketing and the state of email marketing in 2024.
Yeah, so it's only going to grow. Just like with any platform, there's, front end marketing and then there's back end marketing. Front end or, client facing marketing, that's the stuff you see on social media. That's, maybe you run into a billboard, a sign, whatever it is. It's just getting your foot in the door, it's getting your attention. But that alone is not going to pay all the bills, because usually what gets your attention is the low priced products. Like, let's for example, let's just play with the Taco Bell example. I don't know for sure if they offer franchising opportunities or not, but let's just say they do. They attract you with the Taco Supreme that's, a couple bucks, and you're like, I'm hungry, I could eat that. So you go in, you buy, there we go. They got the foot in the door. This isn't necessarily related to email, but I'm going to tie this together. Eventually over time, you eat the Taco Supreme. This tastes pretty good. I actually like this food. So the next time you think about eating, you're like, okay, I had a good experience to talk about. Let me just go again. This time, maybe you order the taco supreme and I don't know what else they sell, but like, some other entrees that come with it. And then, same thing. Maybe next time you bring a couple friends and then you keep ordering in larger quantities because you enjoy the establishment, you enjoy the food, etc. At a certain point, you become such a big fan of it. You're like, how about I just open my own Taco Bell? So you reach out to whatever the franchising company. You say, hey, like I want to, you're a loyal customer. I've been buying for, years. I would love to open my establishment, whatever it is. And they're like, cool. It's 100 grand, 200 grand, $1 million, whatever it is to open up a Taco Bell franchise. And you're like, done. I love the establishment. I love what they stand for. I love the values. Let me just buy. So what got you into the door, aka like the billboard or the email selling like the $2.99 Taco Supreme, ended up in you becoming like a multiple 6-figure, if not 7-figure customer for them by opening up your own franchise. What I'm talking about is the front end is the billboard. The back end is the entire process of you buying from them constantly. And it's the entire process of the advertising that they're providing, whether that's sending you emails, whether that's maybe sending you like flyers to your house, etc. They're constantly nurturing the relationship by staying top of mind, by planting the seed, by being omnipresent. And it gets to a point where you know the brand, like the brand, trust the brand, and you like the people inside of it, you like everything about it, that you feel comfortable enough to dish out a big amount of money to become part of the brand. This is the exact same thing with email, online marketing, whatever it is. If you're running, for yourself, you're running a podcasting coaching company, it's the same thing. You might bring people in with like a free resource, a free PDF. Maybe it's a $2.99 book or ebook, educating them on like the basics of podcasting and what it is. You now have a customer or at least a lead that has opted in, that has raised their hand, that is committed to learning from you. If you didn't charge for the lead, you're going to want to find a way to monetize them. If you did, let's say sell a book, an ebook for a couple bucks, $10, $20, whatever it is, the reality of the situation is you're going to need so many of those sales up front to cover the cost of running the business and to actually be profitable and to build the lifestyle you want. It's going to be quite unreasonable and very difficult to get to a point where recurring, that front end like $10, $20 offer is going to pay for your lifestyle. The way most businesses, most companies, especially online, create all the wealth, create all the income and all the profit is in the back end. So you hook them in the front with a low price product or a free product. They sign up for your email list. And this is where the relationship starts. Now you start giving them value, you start telling stories, you start getting them to know, like, and trust you. You're emailing them every day. Once again, you're becoming omnipresent. You're building that know, like, and trust factor, and you're planting the seed. As time goes on, as these people become more comfortable with you, they feel a lot more comfortable with paying you a larger sum. So they might pay you for, this time it might be a couple $100 to learn something. Maybe the next time it's a couple $1,000. Maybe it's like, $10, $20, $30,000. Like there's some people that some of my clients that we've worked with that will go from opt-in where, it's a cheap product or a free product. Let's say they pay like $10 for an ebook. They become part of the email list. We nurture them over the course of a month, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, whatever it is. But then they pay for a $10,000 training. Their mind is blown from that $10,000 training. Okay, let me buy the next level. So it's like $20,000, $30,000. So that's just like basically what I'm going over. It's called lifetime value of the customer. Is from start to finish, how much is your customer paying you? The goal is to make that number as high as possible. The best way to do that is by implementing back-end stuff that are higher price. But the way you get them to buy that higher price is by what I like to do is email, is because with social media, it's a very shotgun approach. It's impersonal. It's very broad because you're trying to attract a bunch of people in. With email, I call it like your inner circle. It's these people, for yourself especially, it's like your friends. And you're just going back and forth. Like I said, you're sharing stories, you're giving them value, you're sharing them the experiences that you have. You're showing off results that you've produced for other clients, especially. That's a big one. And then these people over time, you're chipping away at the stone of any fear, doubt, uncertainty that they have, to the point where it's like, okay, like I've seen enough. I know this guy. I love this guy. He has exactly what I need. Like, I just need to buy. Like, there's that. One quick story I also want to add on to this to really drive this point home is one of the coaches that I've worked with right now. I've been working with him for like over a year and a half now. Been working with him one-on-one for over a year and a half. So the way I even found out about him is through just listening through podcasts. So he was a co-host on a podcast. I related a lot to him. I loved the knowledge that he had. Eventually, he came out with his own course. So because I already knew of him, I was like, oh, sick. I like this guy. I would love to buy from this guy. But at the time, I didn't have a need for that course. But I was also on his email list. And I would read every single email because I liked the guy. I valued what he had to say. I enjoyed just, taking wisdom from what he had, because we're very similar in age, but he's like miles ahead of me. So what ended up happening is like 4, 5, 6 months later, after, he stopped promoting his course, but he was still sending emails. I ended up getting to a point where I was like, okay, I ran into this problem. I want to get help with it. And this guy is the exact person that can help me. So first of all, he came up into my mind. I also was thinking between another coach. I was going between two coaches. The guy that I heard from the podcast that's been emailing me every day. Then there's the other guy that I just kind of recently found out about and just started reading his content. The thing is, though, the guy that I heard about on the podcast, he had the advantage of time. He also had the advantage of telling vulnerable stories, which made me resonate with him. We went through very similar experiences where he got, screwed over in his opportunity, where I also got screwed over in my own opportunity. So I was like, dang, like this guy knows how I feel. This guy went through a very similar experience. I saw myself in him. And because he was miles ahead of me, I was like, I can be like him. And I know he has what I need to get to his level. So it became a no-brainer where I was like, okay, I'm choosing this guy over the other coach. First of all, that's the first win. Second of all, I messaged him on Facebook, be like, hey man, like I've been watching your content for a while. I really want to work with you. I know you have this course up. I'd love to, talk and see if I can buy. I got so impatient waiting for the response that I just went back into the old emails that he sent and booked a call directly through that email instead of going through the chit chat on Facebook and waiting to book a call through him here. So I got direct access to his calendar, booked a call. We had the call. I ended up buying a $6,800 program. Granted, at the time it was a payment plan, but he still got the $6,800. And then 3 months, 3-4 months after that call, I became a one-on-one client, which is the higher ticket product that I bought from him. And I've been paying him for the last year and a half. So that whole concept of I came in on the front end through his podcast, through his content. He nurtured me throughout the process that I felt comfortable enough to pay $6,800 to become part of his ecosystem, to become part of his course. I love the course so much. I saw great results from it because that's what got me out of the agency game. And then I was like, hey, like I want to work one-on-one with you. So I paid him even more to work one-on-one. And then, like I said, the sort of like the lifetime value of me for him is huge because as you can imagine, like that's a customer paying you multiple thousands of dollars every month for a year and a half straight. That's just recurring income, all because of the marketing, the branding, the advertising, the emails. Like it all plays together.
Okay, so then because even like Russell Brunson said in the trilogy, he talked about how if you can make $1 online, you can make $1 million online. It's just a way of the way you're doing things. And for me, like I said, until I took that course, I mean, I wrote my book, A Hero's Journey from Darkness to Light, like 5-7 years ago. I never heard of the hero's journey until I started following copywriters like yourself, Dan Locke, Kennedy. And it's amazing how a lot of people will put emails out with no emotion whatsoever. It's just, or even no personal anecdote. It's kind of like they just copy and pasted it from Chat GPT, and it has no bearing on me. And I know if you have a car dealership and I go into your car dealership and you're telling me all about how many horsepower it has, how many, this and that. But if you tell me, well, you can take your kids on a drive down the shore and you get me emotionally involved, I'm going to pull the credit card out. But if you're just telling me things and not getting me emotionally involved, then I'm probably not going to, I'm not your guy. So talk to us about, the hero's journey and also getting people emotionally involved in your content.
Oh my, yeah, this is where the juice happens. So this is actually the biggest problem I've noticed as well with a lot of the clients before they've come to work with us is, and just in general in sort of the online marketing industry with the clients that we work with, I'm noticing a problem and the issue that they do tell personal stories, but they're just not vulnerable enough. They're kind of like sort of cliche advice. It's like, it's stuff that goes in one ear out the other. It's just so overdone. Or the other side of it is that everybody sounds the exact same because they're trying to sound like an expert. They're trying to sound like an authority. So they're really just parroting what everybody else says, what, is working for this guy. I'm going to use this for myself. And like you said, it has no bearing. So what we do is we actually take the sort of personal approach to all of our content, because going back to our whole KLT factor and our omnipresence, like that's what really gets you going. That's what ultimately gets people to trust you enough to want to buy from you is the stories. Like I just said, I saw myself in my coach. People want to do the same thing. They want to see themselves in you. And it's very hard to do that if you're, some very successful entrepreneur driving in supercars, living in a penthouse or a mansion, with girls all around you, talking about how great your life is, talking about how successful, like nobody can relate to that. I mean, a few people might, and if people will buy from that, but there's a whole massive pool of people that are going to buy from you if they just know you, who you are at the core. Because at the same time, online marketing is great. There's also a lot of charlatans and people that will basically do whatever it takes just to get money from you, but then not give you anything in return. So to avoid that, to build trust with people, we dive deep, into sort of like the hero's journey, into just talking about the most vulnerable, the most raw, the most brutal stories that they have. And this is a big sort of gap that we solve, is that as a coach or as an entrepreneur, whatever, if you're posting content, it can be very hard to put yourself out there like that, to put yourself so honestly, to basically put yourself out naked, and then have other people judge you. Yeah. It is, I've talked with a couple of our clients, and that it's been the same thing. One of our clients actually expressed how when you grow to a certain level and you're making a certain income and you have a certain reputation online, it's very hard to sometimes be brutally honest because you're afraid people are going to turn against you. They're going to be like, oh, who is this weirdo? He's losing his mind. Or I completely disagree. This guy's going off the rails. And then people start dropping off. Your business as a result suffers. So you kind of stick in this comfort level where you're just, you're talking about, like I said, the cliche stuff, the things that kind of go in one ear out the other because it's so overdone. But what we do is I will hop on calls with my clients and I'll just ask them questions. We'll just chit chat. Like it's like what we're doing right now. And what happens is because it's a one-on-one setting, there's, nothing going on. And I'm able to ask questions that dives deep into some of their, their origin stories where they went through that struggle. They are able to become a lot more raw and vulnerable because they're not pouring their heart out to millions of people or hundreds of thousands of people where they know they're going to get criticized. They're just pouring themselves out to me. And it's like, I'm not going to sit there and, berate them on the call. At the end of the day, they're paying me. I might as well, continue the relationship in a positive way. But what I do is then I'll use what they're telling me, the stories that they're telling me, and then I'll just put it and write emails about it. One, it takes them out of that sort of position of having to be vulnerable and transparent. So it's a lot easier to just voice and have someone else as a third party to write it on behalf of you because you're detached. Two, what ends up happening is people start to resonate with you a lot more. For one of our clients, he basically had a very successful real estate investing business. Come the 2008 crash, lost everything. Credit went to, shit. He lost his car, had to, drive him this like used $3,000 car. One of the stories was he had to dig in his, so he went to the Wendy's drive-through, ordered something, and then he had to go and dig through the cushions to try and find change to make up for what he just ordered. That's the exact stuff that we started talking about. And funnily enough, today I was going through some of our top emails. That was actually one of the top emails in terms of like people clicking on them and the people reading them and people actually booking a call. Because it's just so raw, it's so vulnerable. People get to see inside of you. They see your true intention. They see where you came from. They know you're probably not out here screwing people over, scamming them. So it just kind of builds that trust, that connection that you need, once again, to build that sort of comfort level for people to actually dish out multiple thousands of dollars to actually pay you. And some people think that that kind of stuff detracts from their authority, but it actually makes you an even bigger authority, because showing someone that you went from 0 to 100 is a lot more impressive if you were born rich and then, you went from 99 to 100. Like, once again, it all goes back down to relatability. If your audience can see parts of themselves in you and they believe that you have the solution, then you're already like over halfway there. You just need to nurture them a little bit more and kind of nudge them so that they actually take the action to book a call, to buy whatever it is. So yeah, the hero's journey, like it's worked in movies, it's worked in books, it's gonna work in marketing. Like it's never not gonna work long term, at least.
But one thing, because now with this whole AI thing, with Chat GPT and Bard and all that stuff, I become more of an email lurker. I lurk and I watch everybody's headlines or everybody's, the body of the email, and everything is unlocked, and you're like, yeah, I know that came from AI somewhere. So talk to us about, paying attention to your headline, because if your headline isn't going to pop, they're not going to even open your email. They're going to either swipe or just delete. So talk about how important your headline is.
Yeah. So David Ogilvy had a quote. I'm just going to paraphrase because I don't remember, but it's something along the lines of like, if you have an ad budget, 80 cents out of every dollar should go towards your headline, because it's all about, once again, so the main currency that we're working with, and nowadays, especially with like TikTok, Instagram, and all the social media, is attention. And the only way you're going to get your foot in the door is if people see something new, something unique, something different. Especially different is always better than better. But if you can grab someone's attention, then same thing, like you're halfway there to extending that sort of relationship with them or extending the lifetime value of them, because at the very least now you're able to dive deeper. So you can have the best email written out, but if the subject line sucks, no one's going to read it, no one's going to open it, no one's going to read the email, no one's going to buy or get to know you. So it's kind of a waste of time. If you have a great subject line and an okay email, more people are going to open it and more people are actually going to read it. But that's what counts, is like people actually consume your content. This is another thing that I've had to learn as well, is that you have to actually put effort into entertaining people. Like, same thing, you can have the most valuable lesson in the world, like very wise, very poignant opinions or once again, like pieces of advice. But if you don't bring anyone into the door, no one's going to listen to you. No one's going to take that advice. No one's going to realize how great it is. It's like, going down to the bottom of the sea, picking up a clam and be like, what is this clam? Like, but if you crack it open, then there's the pearl inside. That's what basically missing out on the whole subject line is like. It's like, if you just looked at the clam of what it is, not knowing what there's a pearl inside, you just throw it away. Be like, I don't want this. So yeah, going back to that sort of David Ogilvy quote is like, put most of your focus into making your subject lines and making your headlines, whatever it is, better so that you can get more people into the door. And this is something that I'm always talking about with my team as well, is that, like, if the subject line is just not dramatic enough, it's not inducing any curiosity, it's not inducing any intrigue, then it's like, no one's going to open. So give people a reason why they should open.
Okay, so now somebody's asked me, James asked me, he wanted to know, how many times do you email a person? A week, a monthly? Because I do mine every Thursday. It's called my Thursday Thunder. And I put out something that I think will be important for business and resiliency. But I know it probably is different, but if you don't want to become that spammy guy or spammy girl, what's a good ratio of emails to go out a week or a month?
So for our clients, we email daily. I do want to touch on the whole spammy thing, because some people are like, oh, like I would hate to receive daily emails. Like, you guys email daily, like that's too much. That's too spammy. It's only spammy to the wrong people. That's the thing, is like, if your emails are actually entertaining, they're valuable, people enjoy reading them, it's never going to feel spammy. If you genuinely go in and build a relationship with someone in email or with your marketing in general, no one's going to complain seeing content from you every day. If you have someone that you really look up to, or someone you really enjoy watching on social media or YouTube or listen to podcasts, I don't think you'd necessarily complain if they started posting every day, because it's like, sweet, I get more enjoyment out of this. Whereas it's like, if someone that you didn't care for them being a client or anything like that, obviously you wouldn't want them on your list in general. So it's not spammy to email every day. I think people just think of like the spam emails that they get in their spam folders, where it's basically just trying to sell them something all the time. The emails that we write, like, we'll only throw in like a soft call to action. And by soft, that means like, it's not direct, it's not harsh. It's just like, hey, like, this is what we got going on. If you want to be part of it, click the link and we'll help. But before every call to action, we do long form emails of just telling stories, sharing experiences, sharing anecdotes, adding value once again. So yeah, it's that element where the point is like, it's not spammy to email every day, or it's not spammy to show up in front of people every day. Because like I said at the beginning of this podcast, is that you gotta plant the seed and you gotta build that omnipresence. And if you're not showing up every day, or at least multiple times a week, you risk losing attention and losing that sort of intrigue, because there's someone else that's constantly showing up and someone else taking place at the top of their head instead of you. So that's the way I see it. That's why we email daily for our clients, is because it's just like, some people do it multiple times a day. We think dailies right now, for now, at least for our purposes, is fine. At least just for like the core audience. But that's my perspective on it, is that for the right people, and if your copy is good and your content is good, people aren't going to think that receiving daily emails from you are spammy. If anything, they're going to look forward to reading your stuff. I have people on my email list as well that I constantly look forward to reading their emails. So it just depends on what kind of brand and what kind of relationship you build with the people and who you attract.
All right. So if you're a podcast host, how would you personally build up your email list? Because I hear a lot. I love something that Russell said, was that you need to own your list. Because one day Duck might smack you down and say you're off Facebook, and then if you had 1 million followers, now you got no followers. So talk about owning your list and how to build that list.
Yeah, so it depends. Like, if we're speaking just as a podcaster, for example, like, I love listening to Modern Wisdom. I love Chris Williamson. He has a great thing where once in a while he'll talk about like a reading list that he has. That's one of his sort of opt-ins that I know of. He has a reading list, like his top 100 books, maybe top 50 that he's read of all time. And it's like, hey, if you want to get access to this, give me your email and I'll send it to you. And that's the key to actually building your email list, is provide something valuable enough for people that they're going to want, and then hide it behind an email wall. So, and it's so easy, like it doesn't have to be unethical or shady, or, you don't have to hide anything and be like, hey, give me your email so I can literally email it to you. Like, it could be as simple as that and straightforward as that. But now the benefit is they've opted in, they've given you permission. If you make it clear to basically reach out to them and to market to them, then you can just basically email them. So the key to growing your list is really just figuring out, what does my audience want? How can I give it to them? in a very clear, concise, short form where it doesn't give away the entire farm. Like, we want to still build intrigue and still build that sort of belief inside of them that like they need help from us, that we can provide more to them. Because if you throw everything you have at that free resource and they don't need you to achieve the life that they want, like, you're never going to breach the sale. And you're, as a business, I mean, at that point, you're not really a business. It's a charity, just to be frank. So yeah, just to reiterate, what do they want? Give it to them, hide it behind an email wall. That's how you grow your list. And you'll know, like, if your list starts to grow really quickly, whether you're paying ads, sending people to that page, to that free resource, or you're just posting it organically and people start to join, like, you've really hit the nail. Like, people really want that. For example, like, you know, there's other people that do it where they'll have like a cheap book where it's like, I mean, I know Russell's done this multiple times where it's like, hey, like a free shipping style book where it's like, hey, I wrote this book on how to achieve XYZ outcome. If you want it, I'll cover the cost of the book, just pay shipping, $4.95. And then what happens is you fill in your information, you fill in the email, they send you the book, but now you're on their email list. And then same thing, they start to market to you. So yeah, there's multiple forms of doing it, but in reality, it just comes down to giving your audience something that they want and then putting an email wall behind it.
I love it. So last question I have, because this is a teaching podcast, and thank you so much for taking this time. I truly appreciate you, brother. So what would be your top 3 pieces of advice for somebody starting a business in January of 2024 if they want to make sure that their business gets seen, especially through email marketing?
Yeah. So, I mean, email marketing is kind of it's something that you develop as you go. So I would say number 1 is just start a personal brand on whatever platform you enjoy posting on, whatever platform your ideal customer is at. So whether that's Facebook, for me, it's Facebook because most of the clients that we work with, which is, you know, coaches with high ticket programs, they just reside on Facebook and they usually hang out on Facebook. So that's where I post because the odds of them seeing that is there. Could be X or Twitter, could be YouTube. You have to put in a lot more time for that, but choose any platform. Could be LinkedIn as well. Choose any platform where your ideal audience lives in that you actually wouldn't mind making content on. Start a personal brand. Later down the line, you know, as your brand grows, then go through that same sort of thing that I just talked about, where you figure out what your audience wants, give them the free resource, but then get them to join your list to actually access it. And then you get to take control of your audience. Second piece of advice is, I mean, this might be like sort of cliche or overused, but like there is so much value in playing the long game. I think everything that we talked about on this podcast really goes back to that point of you're not going to necessarily build the life that you want or build the business that you want in the next couple months, in the next year. Maybe you will. There are exceptions. There are people that blow up, but play the long-term game and have a long-term outlook on everything that you do. It's very easy to fall into the trap of focusing on ego or instant gratification, but it's always going to bite you in the butt. So play the long game, because chances are you're going to outcompete everybody that's trying to compete with you by just outlasting them. And then I think number 3, so start a personal brand, play the long game. I would say leverage what you have no matter who you are. So we talked about how content is a free version of leverage. You know, if you're really busy, if your schedule's packed, same thing. Like, it's just going to take 20 to 30 minutes to write something up to start your personal brand. It might, you know, just put aside an hour a day. You know, once again, you're still playing the long game by putting an hour a day to just develop something. If you don't have too much money, whatever it is, just use what you have. And that's inclusive of knowledge and wisdom. I had the hesitation of starting my own brand because of, you know, I didn't think anyone would want to listen to me or have any value in my opinions. That is not true. Everyone has a unique life that they go through, unique way of seeing things. So along with using what you have, share your own stories, your own experiences, and your own wisdom. Don't try to rip someone off or try to use their knowledge. Use your own, because you risk losing your credibility and authority by talking about something that you don't know or that you're not aware of. Whereas if you just openly and honestly share about your own experiences and your own lessons, then people are actually going to follow that and they're going to fight for you as a result. So yeah, I know that the use what you have is like, it's multifaceted, but it just goes every way. So yeah, those are the three things.
That's awesome. So how do we find you? How do we support your mission? I've been following you everywhere. So how do we find you, support your mission, or if we want to get your help to grow our business, to take it to the next level, how do we find you?
Yeah, so I'm on Facebook. You can find me, Dan Bagniuk, DanBagniuk. Also just transitioned to Twitter. So if you want to follow me there, go ahead. I would love to have you there. But yeah, those are the two areas where I live. I usually just post every day. So if something just resonates, just let me know. I always love helping people. And if you do need help, right now with our agency, we're focusing on business owners that are making at least 100K a month cash collected. They have a 20,000 plus list and they're spending anywhere between 15 to 20K on ads a month. So if you're at that level, reach out to us. We'd be more than happy to chat and see what opportunities there are with your email list and how much more we can add onto your business. But other than that, I'm always more than happy to consult and chat with people that are building up to that level. So yeah, follow me on those platforms. Reach out to me if you have questions, and we'll chat.
Dan, I'm so grateful that we finally got together and finally got to hang out and do this. So I just want to say thank you for providing the value for me all these years, and then providing value to our VM Nation.
Yeah, well, it's my pleasure. I appreciate you bringing me on, honestly. Yeah, it's been really fun. So this my goal is just to share as much as I can, help as many people as I can, and you're making that possible for me. So I appreciate you.
So guys, make sure you check him out on Facebook. Make sure you check him out on LinkedIn. I was on his LinkedIn profile today. Amazing stuff, high quality. So guys, if you want to find out what we got going on, go to verticalmomentumpodcast.com. You'll hear this episode. You'll also hear the last episode I just did about AI, where AI is where it started and where we're going, and it's going to blow your friggin' mind. So guys, thank you so much, and I love you guys. Dan, brother, thank you so much, and have a great week, and try to stay warm and try not to go back to the 40-degree weather.
Yep. Yeah.
All right, brother. Thank you so much. And guys, remember, vertical momentum, the only way to go is up, and we will catch you next week. Love you guys. Dan, have a great week, brother.
You too. Thank you.